When a woman cheats, she rarely gets caught because she rarely leaves obvious evidence. She doesn't think like a man in secrecy. She thinks like an artist covering her tracks with emotion, subtlety, and logic. Most men look for the wrong clues. They check her phone, her texts, her emails, and feel confident they've found nothing. But what they don't understand is that a woman's greatest weapon in hiding an affair is her intuition. She hides evidence in places you'd never imagine, places so ordinary that you overlook them completely. A woman's deception isn't loud. It's hidden in her patterns, her behavior, and her routines. Once she crosses the line, she becomes a master of emotional camouflage. These are the 4 places she hides the truth: quiet, clever, and almost impossible to notice until it's too late. The first place she hides her affair is in her digital shadows, not her obvious apps. You'll never find anything in her main messages, photos, or call logs. She knows you'll check there. Instead, she hides in the small details of her phone, places you don't think to look. It could be inside her Notes app, disguised under grocery lists, or to-do reminders. It could be within archived messages on social media platforms where conversations can be muted or buried. Sometimes it's a simple email draft where she writes and deletes, keeping her thoughts unsent but safe. She might even use apps that look harmless, calendar apps with coded entries or photo vaults disguised as calculator icons. To you, it looks like a normal phone. To her, it's an organized maze where the truth lives in plain sight. And if you ever confront her, she'll call you paranoid because that's part of the cover. Women don't hide evidence, they redirect suspicion. The second place she hides her affair is in her friendships. When a woman cheats, she often recruits her closest friends as silent accomplices. She tells 1 or 2 people who will protect her secret, framing it as a private situation or something complicated. These friends become her emotional shield. They'll vouch for her whereabouts, they'll make excuses for her late nights, and they'll even text on her behalf if needed. A woman's loyalty circle becomes her disguise. She might say she's spending time with her friend from work or a girls' night out, and you'll believe it because she's said it before. What you don't realize is that women build emotional alibis long before they ever cheat physically. When you question her schedule, her friends back her up without hesitation. They know the story, they know what to say. This is why confronting her doesn't work until her inner circle starts to distance themselves. Because when guilt begins to spread, it fractures her alliances. And that's when the truth leaks. The third place she hides her affair is within her new routines. A woman's greatest cover is consistency. When she's cheating, she won't suddenly change everything. She'll change 1 or 2 details that seem logical. She might start going to the gym more often, saying she's focusing on her health. She might take up a new hobby, join a book club, or say she's catching up on work projects. These excuses sound believable because they fit her character. But behind every new routine, there's usually an emotional escape built into it. You'll notice subtle shifts. Her schedule feels stricter, but her energy feels distant. She's busier, but not happier. When you offer to join her in those routines, she resists. She says she needs her space, her me time. That's the disguise. Affairs don't live in chaos, they live in structure. She hides the betrayal within the appearance of discipline. And the man who trusts her consistency without reading her energy never sees it coming. The fourth place she hides her affair is inside emotional conversations that aren't about the affair at all. Women are emotional communicators. When they cheat, they don't stop talking. They just redirect the topic. She'll confess things that make her seem honest, like stress at work, frustration with life, or exhaustion from responsibilities. She'll even complain about minor issues in your relationship to make you feel like she's opening up. But this emotional vulnerability is a mask. It keeps you close enough to believe everything is fine, but far enough to keep you from asking the real questions. In her words, she hides contradictions. You'll notice moments when she's emotionally expressive but strangely detached. She talks but doesn't connect. She apologizes for being distant but never explains why. That's how she keeps your suspicion quiet, by feeding your empathy. The more she shares emotionally, the less you question logically. It's one of the most sophisticated emotional tactics women use when they know they're living a double life. When these patterns appear together, Digital secrecy, protective friends, believable routines, and selective vulnerability. It's not coincidence. It's a carefully designed emotional strategy. Women cheat differently than men. They don't chase physical pleasure first. They chase emotional validation. And when they find it outside the relationship, their guilt drives them to hide it in plain sight. They don't cover tracks with lies, they cover them with logic. Every excuse she gives sounds reasonable because she made sure it would. Dr. Alina Rose always says, "A woman's affair doesn't start in her body, it starts in her heart." The moment she starts sharing emotional intimacy elsewhere, she begins separating herself from you mentally. By the time the physical act happens, she's already practiced the art of deception through emotional distance. That's why you can't find her lies easily. They're buried under habits that feel natural. She doesn't delete messages every day because she has to. She does it because it's become part of her rhythm. She doesn't over-explain because she's hiding guilt. She over-explains because she's rehearsed innocence. Now here's what every man must understand. You don't need to dig through her phone or follow her around to know the truth. You only need to pay attention to the energy. A woman's emotional tone always changes before her story does. Her affection becomes inconsistent. Her patience shortens. Her priorities shift. The woman who once wanted connection now prefers solitude. The conversations that once flowed naturally now feel forced. When her words stop matching her energy, something has changed. That's when you stop chasing proof and start trusting perception. When a woman hides an affair, it's not because she's heartless. It's because she's ashamed. She's terrified of the pain she'll cause and the image she'll shatter. So she builds a lie she can live inside. That lie eventually consumes her, and she becomes trapped in her own web of secrecy. But no matter how carefully she hides it, her spirit always exposes her truth. Her energy will tell you before her phone ever will. So if you ever sense these signs, stay calm. Don't confront her in anger. Observe her patterns. Emotional exposure comes through pressure, not interrogation. The moment you stop reacting, her mask begins to crack. Women can lie to your questions, but they can't lie to your calmness. Because silence, when it comes from strength, reveals everything. And when the truth finally surfaces, remember this: finding evidence isn't your victory. Walking away with dignity is. You don't need to prove her betrayal to know what peace feels like. You only need to see who she becomes when she thinks you'll never notice. Because the places she hides her secrets aren't just on her phone or in her schedule. They're buried in the spaces between who she was and who she's pretending to be.